32 years old, and I still remember the exact sound my phone made when my mom's text came through. That little ding used to make me feel something warm. Now it just made my stomach tighten. I was sitting in my car in the parking garage at work, engine still running, coat still on, because I needed a minute before I could go upstairs and pretend everything was fine. The text said, "Honey, I wanted to let you know. We're keeping Aunt Sophie's birthday dinner small this year. Just immediate family. Hope you understand." Immediate family. I sat there for a second reading it again. Then I put my phone face down on the passenger seat and stared at the concrete wall in front of me. I am her daughter. I am immediate family. Or at least, I used to think I was. Let me back up, because if I just tell you the ending, you won't understand why it hit the way it did. My name is Claire. I'm 32. I live in Columbus, Ohio, and for the past 4 years I have been quietly, steadily, almost invisibly keeping my family afloat. It didn't start out that way. It never does, I think. It started with my mom calling me in the spring of 2021, about 8 months after my dad had a mild heart episode and had to cut back his hours at the hardware store he'd managed for 20 years. She wasn't asking for money exactly. She was just telling me that things were tight, that the electric bill had come in high, that she wasn't sure how they were going to cover it, and the car insurance both. I said, "Mom, just tell me what you need." She said, "Oh, I don't want to ask you for anything, sweetheart." And I said, "You're not asking, I'm offering." That was 4 years ago. Since then, I've paid their electric bill 11 times. I've covered 2 months of their mortgage when my dad's income dropped again after his second health scare. I sent my brother Theo money for his kids' school supplies 3 years in a row because he and his wife kept saying they were stretched thin. I paid for my cousin Darren's car registration when he called me crying from a gas station parking lot saying he was going to lose his job if he couldn't drive. I lent my mom $800 for Aunt Sophie's last birthday dinner, the one she threw at that Italian place downtown. Because my mom said she wanted to do something nice but couldn't cover the whole bill alone. $800. For someone else's aunt's birthday dinner. And I did it because that's what I do. That's what I've always done. What I didn't do, what I never did, was make a big deal out of it. I didn't keep a running total on a spreadsheet. I didn't bring it up at family dinners. I didn't even tell my closest friends how much I was actually giving, because saying it out loud would have made it feel like I was asking for credit, and I wasn't raised to ask for credit. I was raised to help. My mom used to say, "Claire, you're the dependable one." She meant it as a compliment. I took it as a compliment. I wore it like a badge. I should have noticed sooner what that badge actually cost me. Here's what my life actually looked like during those 4 years, since nobody in my family ever asked. I work as a compliance analyst for a mid-sized financial services firm. The pay is decent, not incredible, but decent. I have a 1-bedroom apartment in a neighborhood that used to be sketchy and is now just barely affordable. I drive a 2017 Civic with 94,000 miles on it that I've been putting off getting serviced because the timing never feels right. I have a 401k that I've been contributing to at the minimum match rate because every time I try to increase it, something comes up. I don't say any of this for sympathy. I say it because the picture in my family's head of who I am and the actual reality of my life were two very different things. And nobody ever seemed interested in closing that gap. What they saw? Claire has a good job. Claire lives alone, so she doesn't have the expenses we have. Claire doesn't have kids, so she doesn't understand real financial pressure. That last one, by the way, came directly out of my brother Theo's mouth during a phone call about 18 months ago, when I gently suggested that maybe he and his wife could start handling their own school supply shopping. He said, "You don't get it, Claire. When you have kids, everything costs more than you think. You wouldn't understand that." I didn't say anything. I just went quiet and let him finish talking, and then I said I had to go. And I transferred the money anyway because his kids didn't deserve to start school without supplies just because their dad was being condescending to me. But I thought about that sentence for weeks. You wouldn't understand. I understood exactly how much everything cost. I was paying for it. Back to the text about Aunt Sophie's birthday dinner. I didn't respond right away. I put my phone down, went upstairs, got through my workday, came home, made dinner, and sat with it for a few hours. I thought maybe I was being sensitive. Maybe immediate family just meant my parents, Theo, his wife, and their kids. Maybe it was genuinely going to be tiny this year. So I texted my mom back that evening. Of course, no worries. Where are you guys doing it? She replied after a few minutes. We found this beautiful place out in Dublin. Private dining room. Very elegant. Theo's been planning it for weeks. Aunt Sophie is going to love it. Private dining room. Very elegant. I put the phone down again. Then I made myself a cup of tea and sat at my kitchen table, and I thought about the last time anyone in my family had planned something elegant for me. My 30th birthday, I took myself to a nice brunch alone because everyone was busy. My college graduation, my mom showed up an hour late because she forgot to account for parking. When I got my first real job offer, I called my mom and she congratulated me and then immediately pivoted to asking if I could help cover the water heater repair. None of that made me the victim of some great crime. Families are imperfect. People get distracted, I know that. But I also know that when Theo's wife turned 30, they threw her a surprise party at a rented event space and I helped pay for the cake. I know that when my parents had their 30th wedding anniversary, I organized the whole dinner, made the reservation, drove my dad to pick up flowers, and chipped in $300 toward the restaurant bill. I know that I have shown up, consistently and quietly, for years. And somewhere along the way, my family started treating my presence as a convenience and my absence as the default. The actual dinner happened on a Saturday night in March. I know because I was sitting at home watching something on my laptop when I got a notification. My mom had been tagged in a photo on Facebook. I almost didn't click it. I almost just kept watching whatever I was watching. But I clicked it. The photo was of my mom and Aunt Sophie, both of them dressed up, laughing, glasses raised. Behind them was a room full of people. My dad, Theo, and his wife. Their kids in little dress clothes, several cousins, family friends I recognized. White tablecloths, candles, a banner that said Happy Birthday Sophie in elegant script. Someone had ordered a multi-tiered cake. It was not a small dinner. It was not immediate family only. It was a party. A real, planned, expensive, beautiful party. And I had not been invited. I sat there looking at that photo for a long time. Not because I was stunned. Somewhere under all my rationalizing, I think I already knew. But because seeing it in a photograph made it impossible to explain away. There was no version of this where I misread the text or jumped to conclusions. There it was, white tablecloths and all. The thing that got me most wasn't the party. It wasn't even being left out. It was my niece and nephew in their little dress clothes, laughing at the table. My niece is 6. My nephew is 8. I have bought their Halloween costumes for 3 years running. I showed up to every single one of their school performances, even the ones I had to leave work early for. I taught my nephew to ride a bike in my parents' driveway because Theo said he was too busy that weekend. I love those kids completely. And their dad had dressed them up and taken them to a party that I wasn't invited to, after telling me for years that I couldn't possibly understand what it meant to show up for family. I closed Facebook. I sat in the dark for a while. And then something in me got very, very still. I didn't call my mom that night. I didn't send an angry text. I didn't do anything dramatic because I've never been a dramatic person and I wasn't about to start. What I did was open my banking app. I looked at the last 4 years of my own money moving out of my account and into theirs. The amounts weren't always huge, but they were consistent. Month after month, emergency after emergency. The total, when I added it up, roughly, in my head, was somewhere in the neighborhood of $14,000. $14,000 that I had not spent on myself, that I had not put toward a trip I'd been wanting to take, or a new car. Or an emergency fund that was more than 3 months thin. $14,000 that I had given to people who looked at a guest list and did not see my name on it. I put my phone down. I went to bed. In the morning, I made coffee and I made a decision. I did not confront anyone right away. Partly because I needed time to think clearly. partly because I genuinely did not know what I would say that wouldn't come out like a grenade. I spent about 2 weeks just watching. My mom texted me a few times, normal things, checking in, forwarding a recipe she thought I'd like. My brother texted me once asking if I could float him $100 until payday. I said I was in a tight spot this week. He said, "No worries," and didn't ask again. Apparently the world didn't end. Then my mom called. I let it go to voicemail. She left a normal message, nothing about the party, just asking if I wanted to come for Sunday dinner the following weekend. I listened to it twice, then I called her back. She picked up right away. "Claire, how are you, honey?" "I'm okay," I said. "Hey Mom, can I ask you something?" "Of course." "The dinner for Aunt Sophie, was it nice?" There was a pause, short, but I heard it. "Oh, it was lovely." She was so surprised. The place Theo found was just beautiful. "That's great," I said. "How many people ended up coming?" Another pause. "Longer this time." "Oh, just the family." "Right," I said. "Mom, I saw the photos." Silence. "Claire, I'm not calling to fight," I said, and I meant it. "I just want to understand. When you said immediate family, did you mean I wasn't included or was it an oversight?" She was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "Honey, we just thought, with everything going on and the cost of the dinner." Theo was handling the arrangements and he thought it might be easier to keep it. "Theo was handling it," I said. "Yes." "Did he ask you if I should be included?" She didn't answer that. "Did you ask him?" More silence. "Mom," I said. "I paid for half of Aunt Sophie's last birthday dinner. I've covered your electric bill 11 times in the past 4 years. I sent Theo money for school supplies for 3 years in a row. I lent you $800 for the last party." I paused. "I just want to understand where I stand. Because from where I'm sitting, I look like someone you call when there's a bill to pay, not someone you call when there's a celebration." My mom started to cry. Not dramatically. She's not a dramatic person either. Just quietly, the way she does when something hits her in a place she wasn't expecting. "That's not how we see you," she said. "Then I'm confused," I said, "because that's what the last 4 years look like." We stayed on the phone for a while after that. She apologized. She said she didn't realize how it must have looked. She said she would talk to Theo. She said she loved me. I said I loved her too. That part was easy, because it was true. I do love her. I love all of them. But I also said one more thing before we hung up. I said, "Mom, I've been really happy to help whenever I could, but I think I need to pull back for a while. Not because I'm angry, just because I need to take care of my own life for a bit." She said she understood. I don't know if she did, but I had said it out loud, and that was what mattered. Theo called me 3 days later. I knew it was coming. I picked up. "Hey," he said. He has this way of starting conversations like nothing happened, like we're just two people catching up, casual and easy. "Mom said you guys talked?" "We did." "Look, Claire, about the dinner. I didn't think you'd want to come to something like that. You've always said big family things stress you out." I had said that once, about 7 years ago, about a different event in a completely different context. He had stored it and used it to justify not inviting me. I had to take a breath before I responded. "Theo," I said, "you can be honest with me. If the reason is that it was cheaper without me there, just say that." He didn't say anything for a few seconds. "Then, it wasn't like that." "Okay," I said. "Then what was it like?" He started talking about the logistics, about how Aunt Sophie's guest list had gotten complicated, about how he was just trying to keep it manageable. And then, after a few minutes of that, he said the thing I'd been half expecting. "Look, I've got a lot going on. I've got 2 kids, I've got a mortgage, you just don't have those pressures right now, Claire. You have more flexibility." There it was. I said, "Theo, I need to tell you something, and I need you to actually listen, okay? You told me I wouldn't understand what it's like to have financial pressure. You've said that more than once, so I want to walk you through something." I kept my voice calm. In the past 4 years, I've contributed roughly $14,000 toward this family. That's your kids' school supplies. That's mom and dad's electric bill. That's 2 months of their mortgage. That's your car registration that one time. That's the $800 for Aunt Sophie's last birthday dinner. I paused. I paid for the party before this party. I just wasn't invited to this one. He was very quiet. So when you say I don't understand financial pressure, I said, I want you to think about where some of your financial pressure went, because a portion of it went into my credit card and I figured that out alone, without telling anyone, without asking for anything in return. I heard him exhale. I didn't know it was that much, he said finally. I know, I said, because I never made it a thing. But I'm making it a thing now. Not to guilt you, just so you know. We talked for a little while longer. He didn't really apologize. Theo is someone who finds apologies physically difficult, but his tone changed. Something shifted. I didn't need him to grovel. I just needed him to know. At the end of the call, he said, Are we okay? I said, We will be, but I'm going to be a little less available for a while, financially, I mean. He said, Yeah, I get it. I want to be honest about what the next few months looked like, because it wasn't some clean, triumphant transformation. My mom called a few times asking about small things, not money, just regular things, and I picked up every time. My dad texted me a picture of a cardinal that landed on the back porch because he knows I love birds, and I texted back a string of heart emojis because that's just who he is, and I love him for it. I missed my niece and nephew, which surprised me a little by how much it surprised me. I had distanced myself from the adult drama, but they were still just kids who had nothing to do with any of it. I texted Theo's wife and asked if I could take the kids for a Saturday, and she said yes without hesitation, and we went to the zoo and it was a perfect day. I bought them soft pretzels and they complained about walking too much, and my nephew said a bird was scary, and my niece held my hand the whole time we walked past the reptile house. Whatever was complicated between the adults, that wasn't their fault. I wasn't going to let it touch them. But I also did something I hadn't done in 4 years. I opened a high-yield savings account. I scheduled an appointment to get my car serviced. I increased my 401k contribution by 3%. I booked a trip, a real one, just for me, to visit a college friend in Portland who'd been asking me to come for 2 years. Small things. But they were mine. In November, my mom's car needed a repair. She called and asked if I could help. I told her I couldn't right now, and gave her the number for a credit union near them that does low-interest personal loans. She was quiet for a moment, and then she said okay. And then she said, I'm proud of you, you know? Even when I don't show it right. That one took me a minute to respond to. Thanks, Mom, I said. I know. I'm not telling this story because my family is evil. They're not. They're just people who found a source of stability and leaned on it harder than they realized, until the source got exhausted and finally said something. I'm telling it because I spent 4 years being the dependable one, and I let dependable become a synonym for available for whatever anyone needs. And I watched the people I was showing up for plan a beautiful evening without me and call it intimate. The moment I saw those photos, I didn't lose my family. I didn't even lose my temper. I just finally understood the difference between being loved and being useful. Being loved means someone thinks of you when something good is happening, not just when something needs to be handled. It took a party I wasn't invited to for me to see that clearly. And as painful as that was, and it was painful, genuinely, the kind of thing that sits heavy in your chest for a while, it was also the clearest thing I'd felt in years. I rebooked my Portland trip for the same weekend as Aunt Sophie's next birthday. I had a wonderful time. I used to think being reliable was the same thing as being valued. I spent 4 years believing that if I just kept showing up, kept covering the electric bill, kept sending money for the kids' backpacks, kept saying, of course, no worries, eventually the people I loved would see me the way I saw them. As essential, as worth including. What I didn't understand then, and what I understand completely now, is that people treat you according to the role you've allowed yourself to play. Not because they're cruel, Not because they sat down one day and decided to take advantage of you, but because human beings, all of us, tend to stop questioning arrangements that work in our favor. My family didn't see me as someone to exclude from the celebration. They just stopped seeing me as someone who needed to be in it, and the reason they stopped seeing me that way was because I had made myself so reliably useful in all the invisible moments that I became invisible myself. That's not their fault entirely. That's on me too. I was the one who wired money without being asked. I was the one who said I'm fine when I wasn't. I was the one who showed up to every hard moment and quietly disappeared from every good one. Telling myself that was just how things worked. I had confused sacrifice with love, and I had let that confusion run for years until it produced a photograph of a party I wasn't invited to, with white tablecloths paid for in part by my own bank account. The night I saw those photos, I didn't feel rage. I felt something colder and cleaner than that. I felt clarity. And here's what I've come to believe, not because anyone taught it to me, but because I lived it. The way you treat yourself teaches people how to treat you. Not in a punishing way. Not as some cosmic transaction, just as a plain, observable truth about how relationships actually work. When I began pulling back, not dramatically, not with a speech, just quietly redirecting my own resources toward my own life, the dynamic shifted. Not overnight, but it shifted, because the thing that had made me invisible was the thing I stopped doing. There's a kind of courage that nobody talks about much, and it's not the loud kind. It's the courage to let people be disappointed in you. To say, I can't right now, and sit with the discomfort of not fixing it. To watch someone figure out their own problem instead of handing them your solution. That took me longer to learn than anything else. What I know now is that I don't have to earn my seat at the table. Not by being useful, not by being available, not by being the one who keeps the lights on while everyone else enjoys the warmth. Claire deserved to be at that party. Not because she paid for the last one. Because she was family, and the moment I understood that those two things had gotten confused, that my presence had become conditional on my contribution, was the moment I stopped contributing to the confusion. I went to Portland instead. I had the best weekend I'd had in years, and I came home to a life that, for the first time in a long time, felt like it actually belonged to me.